All right, so now we're going to talk about setters and getters methods. Going back to what a class is, we want to make sure a class is its own entity, which also means here we have our person constructor, which is constructing our person, right, by giving name, age, and height. And of course, we having a behavior here that's showing a name, but notice here we had to force the constructor to pass these values here in order to create an object that has values already, right? Which is fine. But now we can use getters and setters, and those, as the name implied, they make sure that we are able to set and retrieve instance variables. They also expose the internals, which means states and properties of a class, to the world. Because, again, we have to make sure that the class itself, so the person class, it has to do everything that it needs to do on its own, and then expose whatever computation that we've done here, that it has done, to the world. Not the other way around, right? We don't want a different class to come in and tamper around with our name or age or height, because that will destroy the integrity of the class. For that, we need to create getters and setters. So a setter will allow us to set a value to our instance variable. Essentially the same thing that has happened here. So what we can do, instead of having our person constructor here passing things, we can just get rid of it for now. Okay, so get rid of it, change it to be an empty constructor. And instead, what we can do, we can go and say public void set name. And since we want to set name, we're going to pass in a string. We're going to call this my name. Okay. You notice we pretty much are doing the same what we did in constructor, except now we are taking this to a different level and create a setter. And notice the naming here. It's a set name. So it's set, and then the name, obviously, of the instance variable we are trying to set. Okay. So next we can say public void set age, int my age. Okay. And for height, we can say public void set height, int my height. So inside of a set name, we are going to set the name to whatever we're passing here in our set name. So naturally, we're going to say name, which is our instance variable at the top here, is equal to my name. That's all. That's all our setter does. For the age, well, we do the same thing. So we're going to say age, our instance variable, is equal to my age. Height, the same thing. Height is equal to my height. Now, if we will go back here, you notice we have a problem now. Well, because we've changed our constructor to be an empty constructor, which is totally fine, which means now we don't have to construct anything in the get-go. We can go back to what we used to do. Just go ahead and create our myPerson object, an empty one, right, in memory. And then we can start setting things. Now we can say myPerson dot set, start with name, okay? And we can say now Paulo. If we run this, we can say my name is Paulo and 00. Well, 00 why? Because we didn't set anything for age and height yet, right? Because we didn't set, we only set the name here. So if we go ahead and say myPerson dot set age, and we say 31, and say myPerson dot set height, and say 5, right, for 5 feet. I'm not 5 feet, I'm more than that. And now if we save this and run, we should see Paulo 31.5. So essentially we are doing the same thing that a constructor does, but except we are allowing this class, Java class here, to actually set it. But notice the difference here. We are not going directly and tamper with the name instance variable here, which is a big no-no, right? Because we made it all private. So now we are allowing for things to be set internally, but exposing the way we set internally to any other class by saying my person dot set name. So we're calling this function here set name to do the job for us. We're not directly going to our name instance variable to do so from our class. So this is the safest way of doing this. So now it's contained and is safer because it exposes its variables, its instance variables through setters. Well, now that we have setters, we also need to have getters, right? Let's go ahead and create our getters. What do getters do? Well, they get values. So we say now public. Now, notice something here. Instead of void, because we need to return something, we say public. In this case, we're going to get name. So we're going to say public string get name. We don't have to pass anything because all it's doing is actually return something. So we say return what? Name. Okay. And we say the same thing, public int now, right? Get age. Okay. Return age. Public int get height. It will return height. Okay, there we go. So now in our show, let's change this to show data, right? Because this is the function that will just show everything. Here where it says name, instead of going straight to our instance variable, we can go ahead and use straight our getters here. So we can say get name. We can say get age and get height. If we save this, now we change this to show data. So let's copy this and actually put it here. There we go. If we save, let's look what's happening. Name is Paulo, 31 and 5. We could have also just gone straight and say system.out.println and just say my person dot get age and save, and we should see 31 here, right? So we can directly just go through our object and go to our getter. Any of these getters we can access now. I hope you're starting to see how important and how safe and how organized this is right now, because now we don't know, we don't have to know what the person object has, right? The actual class. All we need to know is what it exposes to us as programmers so that we can start using. So we now know in order to create a person, we can go ahead and set that person's name and set that person's age and say that person's height. All of this is done without us even knowing. We don't have to even know who created this person object, this person class, what that class is, nothing. Literally, we can just be given this person class in a library and not even opening it, we can just start creating objects off of it. Can you see now the power of object-oriented programming? And you may say, well, that's a lot of work for nothing, quote unquote. Well, it's not nothing, because now we know this class here is protected, right? We can't give direct access to our instance variables from a different class, which is exactly what we want, exactly how you always should think when it comes to creating classes. But now we have a way of entering this person class by using the getters and setters. So we can set things, get the data from our class indirectly. So this is a very important aspect of Java, object-oriented programming, generally speaking. And I want you to take some time and look at this and try to really understand it, because it's very, very important. And as you start taking this abstraction of what objects are and use analogies that are more concrete, such as, talk about cars or a person or a cup or whatever else you can connect to in the real world, you will start understanding that objects, in programming, they're not that difficult to grasp. They may be at first, but that's the idea, right? You're creating these pieces, block pieces, building blocks that you can then connect with other building blocks to create powerful software, powerful programs. So go ahead and take a look at our class here and create your own classes if you wish to. You can create a car class and create instance variables, which are, the properties of a car. Car can have a color, velocity, and all of these other things, and just explore this idea of creating your own classes and instantiate them to create actual objects, right? And go ahead back here and make sure that your instance variables are private, because we want to make sure that they're not accessible directly from different classes, and put setters and getters and create, of course, constructor if you want to force the object to be instantiated with certain states right away, right? If not, you just create setters and getters like I showed you, and start exploring this whole thing here. It's pretty cool if you think about it. All right. Okay. Well, that's enough for now, and I'll see you in the next video.